What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode at the Last True Rebellion, where we take a hard look at Christianity, the lessons that the ancient fathers had to teach us, and how we can apply it to today's world. You guys might have been wondering where have I been, what I've been doing, why I haven't posted anything in a while when it comes to the Last True Rebellion. And I'll be honest with all of you. I didn't want to put out content, especially on this subject matter, that I didn't believe in. This is a very heavy subject. It's a very hard subject. And for somebody who is not an expert, that hasn't been to ecclesiastical school, I can't say that word properly, for me is a fraud. Anybody who hasn't lived their life in the way of Christ, not as a priest, not as a sermon, not as a not as a I don't want to say priest because priests specific some priests, most priests, especially in Catholicism and Orthodoxy, they go to school to become a priest, which is that is good. It's the ones that they have this parish and they just know a few things, and these public speakers that always talk about this way and that way, these quote unquote influencers that you'll see on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube talking about the good thing. Those guys are charlatans. They haven't gone to school. They don't understand the true meanings behind the word. They come up, they hear the word, they read a verse in the Bible, and they come up with their own interpretations, which is false. Period. You don't understand what that is trying to tell you. You don't understand the different variations that teaches you. And that's why I don't want to be doing something like that, because I don't want to come off as a heretic or a blasphemer. It's very important to me that I don't come off as one of that. This week, we're in end of March 25th. This is the end of March that I'm recording this. Last week, I was thinking to myself, how do I still keep this? Because this is important work for me. How do I still keep this, but not come off as a blasphemer, not come up as a heretic, not come up as a charlatan? So I don't feel like one. And it came to my head that I should start reading the Holy Fathers. So my goal for the Last True Rebellion is, when I'm doing these solo casts, and my goal is to have priests and monks, hopefully monks. Hopefully I can get a monk to come on here so we can discuss these topics without having any of them coming up. My goal is to read a book of the Holy Fathers, the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Holy Fathers, and read one of their books and do a little bit of a book review. But more importantly, to give you an aspect of their view of what their worlds were like. And there was one monk, and I'll be honest with you all. I mean, I started it. I have a book here that I'm reading, um, the the spiritual world of Isaac the Syrian by Hilarion Alfeyev. I started reading it, and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna. I mean, it's only what 300 pages, and normally a book that's 300 pages take me a few days to read. But I was like, I started reading it, and I was like, yeah, no, this is gonna take me longer than just a few days. So what we're going to do over the next 8 weeks, 9 weeks, we are going to deep dive into the spiritual world of Isaac the Syrian. Now, you might be asking yourself, who is Isaac the Syrian, Saint Isaac the Syrian? Saint Isaac the Syrian is a monastic that lived in the 7th century. 7th century, and he is one of the most decorated saints in the Eastern Orthodox world. Because of his teachings, because of his writings, because of his life, because of his experiences, he was probably one of the most profound holy fathers that we have. And he's definitely one of the most venerated. Now, remember, I said the word venerated. Venerated is different than worship. We do not worship men. We venerate them if they do good works. And Saint Isaac, I guess people have called him the father of monasticism, or I think I've heard them say that. There's been so much written about Saint Isaac and his teachings. I have used him in the past in one of the episodes that I released before and on fasting, and he has very, very, very clear guidelines on how you should fast. We're going to get into that too. This book here shows you those guidelines of not just, his views on the world and his perspective and this and that, but also guidelines into, how you should be living your life. He goes a little bit deep into like monasticism and this and that, but I know I lent this to somebody and she was like, well, why are you giving me? I don't want to be a monk. It's like, well, no, neither do I. I don't want to be a monk. It's not my calling. It's a way for you to live your life. It's a good way. I was reading through the introduction of this book, and I'll be honest with you. I'm Greek Orthodox, and I didn't realize how messed up my church really is. I mean, wow. There was some points in it that was just like, you've got, my God, like we have so much infighting from the beginning. You had the separation of the Persian church compared to the Byzantine church. You had the excommunication of the Byzantine church to the Persian church, and the Persian church had all the writings in Aramaic, and they continued the writings in Aramaic. And if you're wondering what Aramaic is, it's the ancient language of Jesus Christ. That when Jesus Christ was alive, well, here, I won't say alive. He still is alive. That's a falsehood right there. But one quote that I'll read to you is what explains part of the issues that we have with each other and between also the Byzantine church and the Persian church. This is a quote from page 20, subsection 2, titled "The Christology of the Church of the East." Right in the middle, they're talking that the Christology controversies of the 5th century revealed various points of view on the relation between between the divinity and humanity of Jesus Christ is well known. In particular, the representatives of the Antiochene school, Theodore of Tarsus, Theodore of Mopsuestia, and Nestorius of Constantinople, suggested the following terminology expression of the unity between the two natures, God the Word. Between the two natures, God the Word assumed the man Jesus. The unbegotten Word of God inhabited the one who was born from Mary. the word dwelt with the man as in its quote, quote, temple. The word put on human nature as a garment. The man Jesus was united with the word and assumed divine divinity. When asked the question, who suffered on the cross, they would answer, the flesh of Christ, the humanity of Christ, his human nature, or the things human. And that is there's a footnote there, and the footnote is for Meyendorff Imperial Unity, page 191. Thus, they drew a sharp line between the divine and human natures of Christ. So you can see that there was a little bit of a rift between the two churches. The two churches were Theodore of Tarsus and Theodore of Mopsuestia, which was the, I can't pronounce that. So I apologize to the people who know that. I apologize. I'm horrible sometimes when it comes to these things. So those two were pretty much the representatives, I'll call them representatives, of the Persian side of the church. And Nestorius was the part of the Byzantine. Nestorius of Constantinople. Constantinople is modern day Istanbul. I don't like using that term either. But it is what it is. So there was a big rift between, because they were trying to figure out if God the Word assumed was the man Jesus, and the Word of God inhabited was the one born from Mary, the Word dwelt in the man. Got it? The Word dwelt in the man, and the man and the Word put on human nature as a garment. Now, human nature is, they used the word, the Greek word, it was a very interesting argument that they made where the gnosi, I think it was the gnosi is thought, I won't say thought process, but more on the lines of being, the being. Gnosi is like understanding kind of thing. The human nature is the gnosi of the human. And so it's the understanding. It's all the things that make us live in this physical realm. Okay. And he put that on as a garment. So if that's true, who suffered on the cross? Because we know God incarnate. God is everything. He's everything incarnate. He put on human form. He came down as human to live as human, to teach us humans. So who suffered on the cross? The humanity of Christ, the flesh of Christ, which is human nature, or all things human? And this is where the rift comes in. I cannot answer that. I won't answer that. I'm just telling you why the churches kind of did a 180 from each other, because they're like, well, one's saying this thing and the other saying this thing. So we believe in this and we believe in this, and you guys are wrong and this and that, which is whatever. I'm not going to get into who's right and who's wrong. I'm just saying what it is. Well, I'm just saying that at that point in time when they were trying to understand all this, these, I guess you can call them learned people, it goes into a little bit more further. And they were talking about the Alexandrian tradition with Cyril of Alexandria, who was, quote unquote, was in conflict with Nestorius, opposed to the Antiochini scheme, another understanding of the unity of the two natures. The word became human and did not merely assume human nature. The unbegotten word of God is the same person as Jesus born from Mary. Therefore, it was God the Word himself who suffered in the flesh. Epathen sarki. Thus, there is one Son, the hypostasis, one nature of God the Word incarnate. Mia physi tu Theou logu seskarkomeni. That's Greek. I don't know what seskarkomeni. Incarnate. I think that means incarnate. So we go even further into more fighting and infighting and this and that, and it's this part, the whole Christology of the Church of the East was so like in with each other, and this was roughly 4th, 5th century. I'm not going to bore any of you anymore with the Christology because it's long. Like there's a lot of real division between the East and the West when it comes to uh, finding the Christology, the whole thing. And you're going to need a master's degree in this. I do not have it. I just read like one subsection here, and it was not an easy read. This whole book is not going to be an easy read. But Saint Isaac the Syrian, I just want to give you a little bit of a kind of synopsis of what kind of world that he was coming into, what kind of world he was a part of. So it was right in the middle of this division between the Church of Persia and the Church of Byzantium. And he was right in the middle, and he was actually born in Qatar. So he's technically the Church of Persia. And over the years, that he just he basically took a lot of from both places, mostly from the Church of Persia and all that stuff, which is great. I mean, it's great. I know a lot of Greek Orthodox and original Orthodox, old school Orthodox, are not going to like it, but I mean, it is what it is. He is one of the founding monastics. No, I don't want to call him founding monastics. He's one of the OGs. I'm just going to call him. He's one of the OGs. Like if you want to learn how, Orthodoxy, Saint Isaac the Syrian is the guy that you go to. He's one of them. I have an entire list of 20 people 30 saints that I'm going to be covering over the span of this whole podcast, like Saint Gregory of Sinai, Saint John Climacus, Saint Maximus, Saint John of Antioch, Dadisho, if I can find his works, Simon the Graceful, Saint Ephrem, Saint Evagrius, Saint John the Solitary, John of, I can't even read my own writing, Saint Arafat. I'm going to be trying to read and trying to comprehend their readings. This whole podcast this whole episode is just to give you guys a little bit of a foundation of who we're going to be talking about over the next 8 weeks and why it's important to understand where he came from, the fights that were going on at the time, to give you an understanding of his teachings even deeper. Now, there's going to be some other tasks that I'm going to be doing with these. I'm going to be releasing these on a weekly basis because these teachings, I'll be honest with all of you, they're not easy. They're not easy to read. They're not easy to comprehend. This is writing, ancient writing from Aramaic to Greek to English. And I think I remember seeing his works being translated all over the world. There's a lot of um, meaning that has been lost because of translation. Not because, I'm not going to say because it was done intentionally. It was not done intentionally. It just what happens. Meaning gets lost in translation. And this is why I'm going back to the ancient fathers, and I'm not following any of these new fathers. There's a couple of fathers in the modern world that I follow and I adore, like Saint Paisios. He is probably one of the most relevant fathers of the church that we have, and we will get into his works as well because they are mind blowing, mind blowing. But the best place for me to start, I feel, is Saint Isaac the Syrian, and so that I don't feel like a heretic, I don't want to feel like a blasphemer. I don't want to feel that I'm giving you my interpretation of what the Bible's going to, about what verse the Bible's going to be saying, because that's coming from somebody who is tainted, broken, clouded, where if I can give you an interpretation of the same verse from a saint in the Orthodox Church and we can dissect that, that's different. Because, well, yes, it did come from a man. It did come from a man. Came from his words, came from his mouth. You put it down on paper, and it's lasted the test of time. St. Isaac the Syrian's writings have lasted since the 4th century BC, 4th century AD. We can look at that and we can find some lessons out of that to implement on this week. This week is going to be no lessons this week. I want to leave you with a very something so you can understand where this man was coming from. Next week, we're going to be talking about his view on God, the universe, and humankind. That's going to take me a little bit too. That's why I'm taking a week apart, is just so I can put it inside and try to find the lessons and try to apply those lessons to me. But before we leave, we're gonna end the episode now. I want to leave you guys with a really good quote that kind of explains of who Saint Isaac the Syrian deeply was. This is coming from Bishop Callistos of Dioclea. And it's on page 12 of his book, The Spiritual World of Isaac the Syrian, written by Hilarion Alfeyev. And this is part of the introduction. And I quote, "I do not wish to count milestones, but to enter the marriage chamber," says Isaac. "Any path that quickly takes me there, I will travel on." His words can be applied to his own writings. He does not offer milestones nor spiritual maps or a carefully devised plan of the Christian journey in specific stages. He is intuitive and unsystematic. That's what we're about to get into. Until next week, you guys be awesome.